I've made a folder called raw footage, and this is kind of what you want to do as well. Just make one that's clear that this is the things that we're putting in before we get started. And I've got in there my starting video. I've got my guitarist's video that I videoed myself, but I could have received that from somebody else. And I've got some other things that I'm thinking I might want to include. So I've got the other video of the Make Music Day kind of ident, and I've got another couple of images that I might want to put in, but I don't have to. But I've got them all here. And I would say, before you open up the editing software, these should be safe when you lift them into the edit software to make changes to them. But I would always recommend making a backup of this folder somewhere else on your computer, because you never know what could happen, and you don't want to lose the originals. Because in the edit, if it turns out not looking that good, it doesn't matter. But if you've accidentally damaged these ones, that's not great. And with computers as well, I'm no computer expert of what's going on behind the scenes. But something to think about is that the fact that some videos, and it's even things filmed with a mobile phones are so good these days that the quality might be so high that even a couple of minutes of video is quite a lot of stress on the computer. So if you've got one of those external hard drives, it can be useful to store the video footage that you're working on one of those, and then just remember, when you're working on your edit, always have that plugged in. But it means you're not kind of blocking your computer up with all the video files. So I've imagined that I've done that, and I've got my raw footage here. So I'm going to open up the piece of software that we're going to be using today, and it's called Shotcut. There's loads of different software, and they're all really good, but this one is great because it's legitimately available for free. It's kind of a crowdsourced project, and it's been improved all the time, and it works with both Windows and Apple computers. Windows computers at the moment don't come with a very good video editing piece of software in it, so you'd have to get hold of one for Windows. If you're using an Apple computer, you do get iMovie, and that's really good. So definitely have a go with that. There are a couple of things that you can't do quite as well with iMovie than you can Shotcut, but definitely give iMovie a go and use the principles we're using here. But you might find on further down the line, you might try and do something and you can't do it because iMovie, I guess, is more of a kind of, it's not basic, but just not all the features involved. Whereas Shotcut seems to be quite lucky, in the fact that it's got everything and it's free, because some of them are quite expensive. So I'll open it up on the computer here, and I'll just give you a quick tour around the software. And apologies if you have used video editing software before. This might be covering things you know already, but I'll be pointing out where things are in regards to Shotcut. And again, if you're not going to be using Shotcut, hopefully this will still be of interest, because there are similarities across all of them. So when you open up the software, you get this screen here, and the main thing you'll notice is that the screen is roughly split into two sections. We've got this bottom section, just under half of the screen, and this is what's going to become our timeline. So this is where we're going to have time starting at 0 seconds at the very far left, and at the far right is going to be the end of our video. And this is where we're going to allow ourselves to stack up lots of video files on top of each other. And what we're going to be doing is what's known as multi-track editing. And that's a kind of a concept used in audio editing and video editing as well. And by multi-track, it means that we can put, if you consider one single video, say the video of my guitarist I've got being one track, and then another video being another track, we can put them on top of each other instead of just in a sequence. And the advantages of that would be that if the second track is a logo, perhaps we could put that over the top in the corner of the screen, or we could do something like put some text over the top of the video, or get really fancy and put several different images on the same screen. Whereas with a non-multi-track editor, all we'd be able to do is say, oh, we want the guitarist for 10 seconds and then another shot for another 5 seconds. And most video editors today are multi-track editors. But yeah, that's what it is. It will become clear as we start doing it. So this is Shotcut, and we've got our bit down the bottom for our timeline. That's where all those multi-tracks are going to go. And then up at the top, we've got this bit on the left. This is the filters area. And this is where we're going to be getting all kinds of effects to add to our video. And that isn't just kind of, when we think of effects and filters, it sounds potentially quite silly and over the top things, but by that it means any changes to the audio or the video. So we'll be coming here to add a filter to make us change the size or change the volume of the audio. So that's going to be really important. In the middle of the screen here, once we've set it up, is going to be a video window where we can see the video that we're working on. And those are the three main parts. But before we get started, we need to set up what's known in Shotcut as a project. Some softwares, they'll call it a session, but it's basically your working space. This is the equivalent to, if we were working in Microsoft Word, this is our blank piece of paper, and we need to give it some settings to understand. So in this new project window, I'm going to click at the top and tell it where I want to save my video I'm working on. So I click here and it will open up a window, and I'll just let it know where I want to work on my video. And you could ask this as well to do it on your external hard drive. It's up to you completely. So I'm selecting this location, and then I'm just going to give it a name. This isn't for the public. This is just a working name. So something that helps for you to see what it is at a glance. And then this is the most important bit, and the bit that is going to be tricky to change if you don't get it right straight away. So there's something here called the video mode. And if I click on this, it will bring up this big long list. And this is the specifications of the video that we're going to be creating. So regardless of the video files that we put in and what resolution they're filmed in and any kind of information like that, we can almost disregard that and just think about the video that we're going to be exporting at the end. And if we put in a low quality video, we'll be kind of upgrading it in a sense, but it wouldn't necessarily be good because it'll be stretching it. But if we had a really high quality piece of footage that was way too big, we could squeeze it down. But you don't really want to think about all of that at all. What you just want to think about is what is going to be best suited to my audience. And today, there's a few different varieties around. There's HD, which is the high definition kind of resolution of your television, which was kind of brand new, I guess, 10 years or so ago, which is still considered to be very high quality. And now you hear about a lot of people making 4K videos, which is the next big step up, which basically in layman's term is just how big the video is. But because we're working on making something on a laptop computer, it's probable that all of our audience will be watching this on a mobile phone or a laptop. I wouldn't recommend going above HD. And the main reason is because when you exceed that, there'll just be an awful lot of stress on your computer and making it potentially impossible to work on. And there's no point in doing it unless you receive those high quality video files to start with. But if you did, there's no reason why you can't go down to 1080. It will still, to our human eyes, it will look just as good. So I recommend sticking with HD 1080. The 1080 refers to the number of pixels vertically up the video. So in a normal video screen, you have the rectangle and it's 1080 down there. And then there's another number here, 30 FPS. And this refers to the amount of frames per second. So individual photographs seen every second. And it's the same principle. It's ideally, I guess you'd have this the same as it was videoed on the majority of the video footage you're going to be working on. But as a kind of work for everything approach, 30 FPS is a good standard. Some things go up to 60, and those would commonly be used if people were filming something they wanted to put into slow motion, because they've got so much information there, they can slow it down and they've got loads and loads of little photographs. But 30 FPS should do the job for us. So I would recommend, unless it's a very specific project, sticking to this. So this is 1080p, 30 FPS. And then we're going to click start, and that would have created our project where we can start working on our video editing project. So here we go. I've clicked start. And it doesn't appear to have done that much at a glance, but this is our project, but it's just we haven't imported any video, but we've got our timeline down the bottom. This will be where we end up getting our seeing our video footage. So I'm going to start off by getting in my main piece of video that I'm working with. And looking back at my timeline, I'm just doing a really simple video. The main part of it is the guitarist that I videoed. So I'm going to go up to the top left, and there's a nice big open file button. And this refers to, instead of opening a project, this is to open individual videos or photographs and images or audio files that you want to include in your project. So I'm going to go up there and I'm going to do them one by one so I can keep a kind of calm check on where they are and add to it as we go on. So it's taken me to my folder, but if it hadn't already, I would navigate to my raw footage folder, and then I've got my guitarist video here. So I'm going to click and open it. And you can see that the video is opened in the middle of the screen, and you should hopefully be able to hear the guitar being played. I'm going to stop that by pressing the space bar. Now, at the moment, what's happened is it's giving me a preview of what that video looks like, but it's not in our project just yet. It's just saying, are you happy with this video? And I am happy with it, and I'm going to put it in. But if there was, for any reason, that I only wanted a small section of it, you might be able to see down the bottom, there's a big red box along the timeline here. So the timeline for just this guitarist footage runs from 0 and then indicates the end of the video, which this is about a 30-second video. And what I could do is change the size of that box just to grab a little bit. But I think it's probably best to grab the lot, and then we can make changes once it's in the timeline. So what we need to do, we've opened up the footage. We need to create a track for it to go on in our timeline, in our multi-track editor. And to do that, we go down to the timeline, and there's a button with 3 bars on the far left. We click that once, and there's a button here that says add video track. So I'm going to click that, and it's created a little kind of control panel here. And this is the start of our track, and it allows us to do some very basic controls on it. And so I go up to my video, and I'm going to click on the video, on the actual video screen anywhere. And I'm going to click and drag down the bottom. And as I drag, it comes up with the word overwrite to indicate that I'm going to drop it on video track 1, which is the only one we've got created at the moment. But you could accidentally, if I had something there already, drop it on top. So yeah, just be wary where you're popping it. So I can drag it to the left to put it right at the beginning, and I can drag it to the right to put it further along, which doesn't make sense for this because we haven't got anything in there yet. But say if I was grabbing something to put it at the end of the video, I could definitely do that. So I'm going to let go of it here and just give it a split second to load. And then what's happened is now the video kind of screen in the middle has changed from showing me that individual guitarist video to showing me the video of my project. And in my project, what I've got, because I dropped it at the very beginning, I can move along and I can click on this timeline here for the entire project and to the beginning. And then if I press the space bar, it will play what I've got already. So, which is just the guitarist. But because where I've kind of dropped it, I dropped it 4 seconds in. So there's a black screen at the beginning. So here we go. So what I've done is just very simply lifted my guitarist, plopped them down into the multi-track editor. I haven't actually changed it in any way just yet, but I've got it down there. And every video that you put in is going to look like a box like this on your kind of multi-track space, your timeline, that indicates when it starts and it ends. And there's a little kind of image down the bottom, down the far left, that shows the photograph of the very first frame. So you can see at a glance what you're dealing with. But when you did receive your files at the beginning, whether you filmed them yourself or whether you somebody else filmed them and sent them to you, I should have said this right at the beginning, do change them to something that makes sense to you. Because if somebody sent you a video through, say, WhatsApp, it will have just a great long file name full of codes and stuff that doesn't make any sense to us in the edit. So change it to something that is clear to you what you're dealing with here, because those names are going to display in the editing software for you. And once you're dealing with several videos, you want to see at a glance, oh, that's the guitarist, that's the person talking, or whoever, whatever it happens to be. And you'll also see in this box, there's a wave here, which indicates the audio in the video. The audio wave, if you've done any audio editing before, is the same principle. The bigger the wave, the louder it is, in a simple sense. And when the wave dies away to almost nothing, that suggests there's silence. So if this video had got nothing on it, it would have just been a kind of straight line there, which we'll see actually, because the next video I'm going to drop in is going to be silent. So what I'm going to do is you can click in the timeline and drag this backwards and forwards to put it wherever I want. And I'm going to put it right at the beginning, because I did that by accident, losing those 4 seconds at the beginning. I want it to just kick off, that the video starts straight away with the guitarist. And now if if you look just beneath the window that shows the video, there's a few controls to play and stop and rewind. If I click rewind right back to the very beginning, and then I can press spacebar on my computer to play it, I can see that it starts immediately. Now, before I do anything else, I'm about to get my other video. Something to say about video editing and any kind of computer editing is, even if you have the best computer in the world, these things are putting your computer through a certain amount of stress, and occasionally they'll just shut down for no reason to people like me that don't know anything about computers. And that may happen at any time. Hopefully it won't happen today. It doesn't happen that frequently, but do get into the habit of pressing save really frequently. So there's a nice big save button up the top, because it's worth doing it, because it will probably happen and you don't want to have lost a load of editing. Whereas if it shuts down now, I've pressed save, so I'll get this back. So yeah, I pressed saved, and now I'm going to get in another video. But before I do so, I think I'm going to create a new track for that video file to sit on. So I go down to the timeline again, press the 3 bars, and then do add video track. And I've created a new video track over the top of the other one. And at the moment, there's nothing on it. So when we're playing the video, I can see the one beneath very clearly. But a good way to think about these multi-tracks in your video editor is to consider them as being pieces of tracing paper. So at the bottom, our bottom piece of tracing paper has on it the guitarist, and the one in the middle at the moment has nothing on it. But if I was to put a video on that piece of tracing paper that completely filled the frame, it would block the guitarist, but the guitarist would still be there if we needed to make any adjustments, but it's just blocked it because it's higher up the pile. And you could have loads and loads of these in your pile, and whatever comes at the top blocks the things beneath. And that's really useful to think about it like that when you get into doing more creative edits where you might want someone just on half the screen or something like that. So I've got my another video track sorted here, and I'm going to open up another video file. So I go to open file, and this time I'm going to open this one that I've got here, but it could be anything. This is just a little graphic video for Make Music Day. So I click open, and once again, it's gone and shown me what the video looks like here. So it's reverted away from showing me the demonstration of the project I'm working on to just showing me that little clip to make sure that that's what I want before I drop it in. And it is what I want. So I'm going to just click it and drag it down. And this time overwrite comes up again. And there's nothing on this top track, which I've just created. So I can drop it anywhere. But you'll notice I could drop it over the top of the guitarist, and it would allow me to do that. So just be wary of that, because then I would have effectively deleted part of the guitar video, which I don't want to do. So I'm going to let go of it for the purpose of this edit. I'm just going to let go of it anywhere, but I could try and be quite precise where I pop it. But I'm going to put it in the middle for now, so we can see that tracing paper effect. So I'll click on the timeline to put this cursor just before it starts, and then if I press the space bar, we'll be able to see the video from where we are now, about 17 seconds. And we should be able to see when we get to this point here that the logo comes up on the screen. that's come up. That's not where I want it, but it is showing as I imagined it to. But this video could have easily been, I don't know, a cutaway to if I had a video of the audience watching my guitarist playing. If there was a live audience, I could have done something like that. So I could put the video wherever I want to do things like that. If you are dealing with music and a kind of a piece playing the whole way through, I find it useful to have right at the bottom of your kind of tracing paper pile, have something that sits there the whole way through and is just a simple video of the musician or the group. And even if you're going to be having loads of exciting stuff dumped on the top, for the sake of you as the editor, it helps that you can always go back and see, oh, this is where we are in the piece. Yeah. I wouldn't, rather than deleting the guitarist, say if we didn't want the guitarist to appear on the screen in that section, just cover them up with a video on top. And of course we need to do that today because the audio was kind of hardwired within the guitarist's video file. So I've got my little logo there, and I'm going to click and drag, and I'm going to pop it right at the end of the video, and I'm going to have it overlapping a little bit so I can still hear my guitarist playing, and but the logo comes up on the top. If that logo video was to have audio, I would hear a blend of both of them. So with the tracing paper kind of analogy, that works with images, but it doesn't work so well with audio because we can hear two sounds at once. And that's when you're going to have to get into mixing the levels, which we'll do with our flute example in a second. But keeping this one simple, I've got our guitarist there, and I want to just have it. So I guess this is more of just a little trailer to see a little clip, a 25-second clip of my guitarist playing, and then it comes up with the logo at the end. So I'm quite happy visually how that is, but and I'm happy with the sound that was recorded. It was really professionally audio recorded, which the flute player hasn't been. So we'll be doing some tricks with the sound in a second as well. But what I want to do, because I've just got a clip of the guitarist and it's not the end of the piece, I want to put a nice audio fade on the end. So it's not so harsh and it feels like somebody's cared a bit more about the video. They haven't just plunked on that Make Music Day logo. And to do that, I click on the video that I'm working on, so the guitarist, and up here we'll go to our filters section, and there's a plus button down the bottom left. I'm going to press that once, and it brings up three categories. We've got favorites, which is ones memorized by the software that I've used before, and we've got video, and we've got audio. So video filters or effects will obviously affect what we can see on the screen, and we can do the same with audio. And with these filters, we can add multiple of filters to the same video block or audio block. But do bear in mind, the more filters that you pop on it, the more stress it will be on your computer. So if everything's running quite slow, do hold back on those, because this multi-track way of editing is what's known as non-destructive editing, meaning that anything we do down to these videos here, we aren't actually impacting those original files that we've got saved in our computer somewhere. We're really just making changes to a copy of them and creating something new. And the advantages of that is we don't ruin our original files, but the disadvantages of that is it's an awful lot of stress for the computer because it's having to kind of make a temporary display of this is what your video could look like kind of thing as you work. So what I'm going to do is just put that audio fade on there. So I've got my guitarist highlighted, and I'm going to go to audio. There's lots and lots of audio effects allowing you to do all kinds of different things, which we'll have a look at in a second. But for things like fades, there's some presets that will get us in the right kind of ballpark. So there's one here that says fade out audio. I'm going to click on it once, and now the filters view has changed. And now what it's showing me is all of the filters that have been added to this guitarist's piece of footage. So if I click away to the Make Music Day footage that I put in, the filters view goes and shows nothing. And that's because it's showing all the filters associated with that piece of footage. But all the filters that I've added to the guitarist still remain there. And to have a look at them and make changes, I just click back on the guitarist in the timeline view, and I can see fade out audio there. And it's given me a few basic controls, how long the fade out lasts. And it's set it automatically to 1 second. Line, I can see there's a little kind of grey kind of diagonal line at the end, which is showing the fade out. And I know through like having enjoyed adding fades to things in the past, 1 second is way too fast. That's not going to work for me, but I could have a listen and play it and change it. But straight away, I'm just going to change it up to 5 seconds because 1 second isn't that much different to just it abruptly ending. So I'll change it to 5 seconds, and let's have a listen and see how that sounds now. The grey fading sign has now lifted longer, and we'll have a listen to the last 10 seconds. So it's not perfect. I could play with that all day, but it's something more in the right kind of area, and hopefully gives a bit more of a professional appearance, but still isn't that complicated. What we've got here in edit is the guitarist, the other bit of footage, and I've just faded the audio. With audio editing and video editing, the undo button is a really good friend of yours. The whole thing is really experimental. And with lots of this, I guess it's very similar in a creative respect to playing or composing music, where you're just trying things a lot of the time. And yeah, you want to get used to pressing undo. When you add something on, it's never going to work straight away and look great or sound great immediately. Sometimes you have to persevere, like we did with the fade out. Or sometimes you add it and it's like, oh, actually, that doesn't work. Let's just press undo and revert it back to how it was. And that's the great thing of editing with computers rather than us being back using tapes or whatever they used in the past. So yeah, we've done that. We've got that ready. I'm just going to add one little title at the beginning, and then we're going to move on to a more complicated edit, but using the exact same principles, just adding more effects and more video files. So I want to add at the very beginning just something that says summer performance or something like that coming up on the screen. So I'm going to rewind to the very beginning of the piece. And there's two ways I could do this. I could add in another image or something like that I've created already that says the text on it. And I could drop that in just as we did with the video of the Make Music Day. You can do that with a still image and just control how long it appears on the screen. But what I'm going to do, instead of worrying about that, I'm going to write some text that appears over the top and is kind of within the guitarist's video, which is a perfectly suitable way of doing it. And to do that, we're going to add it as a filter to that piece of footage. So I'm going to click the plus button again. So this time it's already got the fade added, and I'm not going to affect that. That's going to remain. So I press plus and it takes me back to this bit where I've got all my things I could choose from. I'm going to go onto video and I'm going to scroll. There's loads and loads of great effects. The best way to get good with the effects is just to play around with them, or just use the ones that are applicable to you. We'll be looking at a few more with the flute player in a second. But I'll scroll down to one that says text. There's a few different variations, but I'm going to go with text simple. So I'm going to click once on that, and straight away some numbers have appeared on the screen. And when I've got text highlighted in the filters view, if I scroll down, there's a load more controls here that weren't here before. When I clicked on the fade out audio, it just gave me one control. But as we get into more complex filters, which adding text to a video certainly is, it will give me a few more options. So what I'm going to do is, there's a big window here to type in what I want it to say. And at the moment, it's just got a clever way of getting the time code, which I don't want. I just want to change it to say something like summer performance. So I'm going to put that in there. And it's showing me on the screen a preview of what it's going to look like. And I'm going to scroll down, and I think there's a way to change the font here. So I'm happy with the font, but it's lifted all the fonts from my computer. Actually, I'm going to put it bold, so that's a bit more striking, but I could change it to something that's more appropriate to my group or piece. And you can change the colors of the text just like you would do in a kind of image editor. And I'm going to make a nice big bold outline around it. And then for where it actually appears on the screen, we could either change these position details here where it's got the exact position it appears on, but I find it easier to go over here and I can click on the screen on this dot in the middle, and I can move it around like this manually to wherever I want it. And if I go down to the bottom of the square, I can change the size as well. And what we're doing is controlling the word summer performance, but that white square around the outside is just a kind of thing for us to be able to control where it sits. So when we finish our video, that won't be on it, just the word summer performance. So I'm happy with it being there at the very beginning. But if I was to press play, the word summer performance is going to be on our video for the entirety of it, or the entirety of that guitarist's performance. And that could be good if that's what you want, but I don't want that. I'm just going to have it disappear after a couple of seconds. So I click back on the guitarist, make sure I'm clicking on the text filter, and then I'm going to scroll down. And what we're going to do is add something called keyframes, which is potentially quite complicated, but it's really important in video editing. If you want things to move, this is a way of saying to it, at a certain time, can this video change to do something else? And you do that by clicking on this little stopwatch here next to the positioning of whatever you happen to be working on. So for me right now, I'm working on the text layer. So I'm going to put it, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the keyframe on from the start. So I'll press that, and you'll notice that another line has come up underneath my guitarist, and it's showing me just things appropriate to the guitarist. So we've stepped away from looking at the entire timeline. We're just zooming in on the guitarist for now. So I've put a keyframe in saying I'm happy with summer performance to be here, and I'm going to press play and watch it for a second until I decide I want the summer performance word to go. So I think roughly around here. So I'm going to press pause by pressing the spacebar, and I'm going to, oh, sorry, I pressed the wrong button there. I'm going to make, I've done something wrong already. What I've done is between each two keyframes is where the movement's going to happen. So what I'm going to do, if I was to put another keyframe in here and make it move, it would mean that my summer performance word is slowly drifting off the screen for the entirety of that 5 seconds. So I will do that, and then we'll fix it and make a decision of when we want that movement to start happening. So to make my second keyframe, I'm going to move summer performance around on the screen. And this time, instead of just moving it somewhere else for it to stay for the entirety of the video, it's going to move it somewhere else, but also remember where it was before. And then it's going to do a kind of glide between the two positions. So let's pop it right down off the screen so it disappears for the viewer. And now you'll notice down the bottom on the keyframes view, it's done a nice big red dot, and that indicates where that movement's taking place. And there's a kind of white one, like a diamond at the very beginning, which is where the first movement is recorded from. So if I rewind back to the beginning, we'll see the mistake I've made, which is to having it moving for the whole time. That actually looks quite funky, but it wasn't what I was intending to do. So, but I am happy with where it starts and it ends. So to fix that, these little keyframes down here are completely movable by clicking and dragging on them. So I've clicked on the first one, and I'm going to drag it all the way across to just a couple of seconds before the next one where it's registered it moving off the screen. And hopefully what I've done is there's no keyframes at the beginning. So for this whole section up until the first dot, summer performance is in the middle of the screen, no motion at all. And then as soon as it gets to this next keyframe, it said, let's start moving. And then the final one, it's given it a position, which is where I indicated it to go off the screen. So in between these two here, it should drift down off the screen. So let's have a watch, and then fingers crossed, it'll be 5 seconds of it not moving, and then it will move down far faster. There we go. And we can still see the white box around it, but that isn't a worry at all, because that's just an indicator of where that text is. And if we click away from the text simple filter, we can get rid of that. And what we've got to remember is we're still on the keyframes down the bottom. And at the very bottom left of the screen, there's 2 tabs here. One says keyframes and one says timeline. Keyframes was open because I clicked that stopwatch logo, which you'd only use if you're doing something like this, making something move, which you don't have to at all. So I'm going to just click timeline and go back to our timeline. And then if I watch the beginning, I can just double check summer performance is there. And then it disappears off the screen. My guitarist plays the whole way through. And then at the end, the audio starts fading out and then my logo comes up. And I'm happy I've achieved what I've done with my intentions for that guitarist video. So my last thing is just to export that. So we've got the video made, but it's only available for me to see at the moment within the software. So to get it out to onto my computer so I can do whatever I wish to do with it, which could be just send it to other people that I want to show it off to, or potentially post it online on some kind of platform. I go up the top to the word export, which is over here on the left. It's got a picture of like a CD or a DVD, and I'm going to click that once, and it's replaced filters with a new window. And what I want to make sure is that it's set to timeline. And this is saying to it, everything that I've put in the timeline as it is, I want to kind of boil that down to one new video file. So I've made sure that's on that. And now there's loads of different options down the side here, much like when we started our video project and there was all the options to have it at all different settings. Unfortunately with video, there's been so many different changes in how it's kind of saved and all the technical numbers and how it's set up. There's loads of these, but what I would recommend going for is one of these H.264 ones, which is kind of a common video type for if you're sharing with other people or posting online. And there's also a YouTube preset there, which you could use as well, which supposedly will be set up really well for YouTube, but H.64 would also work. So I'm going to click on H.264 high profile, and I could click on advanced here and it will bring up a box and tell me all the information about how I'm exporting that. Because I'm not a kind of computer expert, a lot of this doesn't mean anything to me, and it doesn't have to mean anything to you. We're just going to trust it. We've selected the preset there, but there is an audio setting if you wanted to do anything like adapt the audio output, but this should be excellent audio that comes out. The sample rate and the bit rate of the audio should be high enough, but you can make changes there if you did want to. But I'm going to go back, leave advanced alone. Sorry, so I'm going to click away for advanced. I've clicked my preset, double checked it's on timeline, and then we're going to click export file, and it will bring up my Explorer of my computer to decide where I want that to be. And I'm going to give it a name here. So I'll just call it Leon's video. And I've decided where I want it to save to. Where I've called it Leon's video, do bear that in mind though. It sounds silly, but when you're working with a lot of video, do give these things names that make sense to you when you export them, because you might end up making a few variable versions of it. And the last thing you want to do is, if you're intending on posting it on social media, is to be like, oh no, I posted the one where summer performance flies across the screen way too slowly. So yeah, I do have a naming principle that works for you. So I'm going to press save, and if I go over to the far right of the screen, there's this view called jobs, which you can get to if you click on jobs at the top as well, if it's not displaying for you. And you can see that there's a progress going up in percent there. It's going through it quite quickly because this is only a 30-second video. But with video editing, this part is potentially going to take quite a while, because you're saying all of those changes that I made to my files, now I want the software to kind of bake those into a finished video file. And if your video is quite long or has loads of filters added, this could take a while. But yeah, this one did it quickly. So now I can see that it's finished. It's got a tick next to it. So I'm going to go, I think I can click on it here and find out where it is. So I can right click and I can click show in folder. Oh, and that's opened up my computer browser. And it's highlighted it here, Leon's video. And so this is saved on my computer. And now we still have the project if we want to go back to it in the video editor, but we've got our kind of export, and I'll double click on it. And this opens up in the kind of video player in my computer. And it's playing as imagined, and I'll just fast forward to the end to check that I've got that logo. Yeah, it looks like that's all on there. So that's our finished file, and now that's ready for us to do with whatever we want to do with it. But yeah, if I exported it and suddenly the next day I remembered, I didn't want to use that bit or something, this project is always going to be here. So as long as you saved it and you don't delete it, you can go back and make more adjustments.